We've reviewed The Giver. We've reviewed Gathering Blue. We've reviewed Messenger. And now let's finish off the Giver series with the last book, Sun. Let's start this thing. Welcome back to BG's Books. I'm Mr. BG, and today I will be reviewing Sun by Lois Lowry. So, of course, as I mentioned, Sun is the last book in the Giver Quartet. It was released in 2012, and I mean, I haven't done any research, but it doesn't seem like Lois Lowry would consider doing a fifth Giver book because, I mean, it even says here, the thrilling conclusion to the Giver. So I think this is certainly the last of it. But this is certainly the most ambitious Giver book, you could say. I mean, look how long it is compared to the other three. The other three are all about the same length, and then this one is just like 4 times the size of all those. So, yeah, it's certainly the most ambitious. It has the most stuff going on, and it seems to connect everything together, which certainly Gathering Blue and parts of Messenger were lacking. So I will say this, it certainly does connect the missing pieces from everything that we've seen before. But yeah, this is just I think it's actually a pretty good conclusion to the series of The Giver. But before I explain why, I guess I should actually explain what Sun is really all about. So let's get into that. So just like all the other books in the Giver series, Sun, of course, follows a new person named Claire. And so her assignment, because she lives in the same community that Jonas did in the first Giver, so there you go, that ties back in that first book right there. She is assigned as birth mother, and so at 14 she gives birth to a child, but she unfortunately has some complications with the pregnancy leading to a C-section birth. And long story short, she can no longer be a birth mother. Yeah, so what they end up doing is they end up reassigning her to be a fish hatchery person. But they do inform her that her baby is alive and healthy, and they accidentally say that her child is a male under the number 36 because they're all assigned numbers 1 to 50, and after 50 children are born per year, they stop until the next year. That's how it goes. So now she knows that she has a son who's number 36. So while working at the fish hatchery, she decides to go down to the child nurturing center where number 36 is, and she starts to be acquainted with 36. She even meets Jonas's dad from the first book. If you remember, he was a nurturer and stuff. And she starts to get really close with the number 36 here. She doesn't know why. She just gets really close with the number 36. And so basically, over like the next year or so, they start getting closer together and stuff. We start hearing things about Jonas's father's family and like Jonas and whatever, how number 36, also known as Gabriel, if you remember, Gabriel was his name in The Giver, and this is Gabriel. He has to spend the night at their place because he's like whiny and stuff, and they just don't want that. And so basically, the rest of The Giver goes on. This is about the same time frame as The Giver was. So if you remember the first Giver, this was going on all at the same time. And so basically, long story short, Claire realizes or is told or something that number 36 will have to be leaving the community because of his stuff. And of course, from the first Giver book, we know that leaving means euthanized, and so she doesn't like that. So she wants her baby to be safe, but she already realizes that the guy's son, Jonas, has gotten Gabriel and escaped. And so she's like, okay, that's cool. So she gets on a boat and goes to try and catch up with them. But their boat ends up in a really, really terrible storm and shipwrecks. By the way, there were 3 parts. That was the first part. So the second part starts with these people of this village, the same village that Well, I don't know if it's the same village that Jonas was in. Anyway, there's this village that she crashes into, and she doesn't remember any of her memories. So while she's doing that, she gets work there and stuff. And then this guy named Lame Einar, that's actually his name, he's also trying to teach her how to escape from this weird village too. And basically have to climb up like this very steep cliff to get out. And eventually she does. It takes a while, but she does. The second part is definitely like the slowest part of the book, you could say. It's the least interesting. Anyway, so at the top of the cliff, she meets this guy called the Trademaster, who you might remember is one of the guys from Messenger. He was the reason why they shut down the village in Messenger. And so basically, Claire just tells him, like, I just want to find my son. And he's like, okay, I can tell you where your son is if you give me your youth. And so Claire's like, yeah, that's fine. So, yeah, anyway, long story short, Claire becomes a really old woman, very close to death, and the Trademaster tells her where her son is and also that his name is Gabe. And that's the end of part 2. So part 3 actually catches up with all the other characters that we met in the other books. Of course, this is in the aftermath of Maddie having died from Messenger, and then Christopher, or the Seer, or Kira's dad, has also passed away. But Jonas and Claire, not Claire, Kira, remember Jonas from the first book and Kira from the second book, they are now married and have children. And Jonas actually resigned as leader of the community. He just wanted to live life and stuff and just have a family, which was nice. So he and Kira have settled down and whatever. And the village, with Jonas's help, have realized that they got really greedy because of the Trademaster. The Trademaster was just really manipulative. He reminds me of Leland Gaunt from Needful Things, which is something I should have mentioned in the Messenger video, but I just did not think to for some reason. Anyway, so yeah, he was just like very manipulative, and Jonas convinced them that he was a bad guy, so they banished him and opened back up the village. So the village is now welcome to community members again. But anyway, so eventually Jonas meets up with this old woman named Claire, and now we talk about Gabe a little bit, because Gabe was kind of mentioned like in Messenger once and stuff, but instead of being a young toddler now, he is now like a 15-year-old kid, I think. This is about 7 years after Messenger, mind you. So he's about a 15-year-old kid now, and he notices that this old woman keeps watching him from a distance, and he's like, okay, that's a little weird. But at the same time, he also has a power to see into people's thoughts or minds or whatever, called veering. So he can veer into people's thoughts very briefly. And so at the same time, he's also wondering what his true mother was like and where his actual parents are, which is, of course, Claire, the old woman that is watching him. So anyway, long story short, they get acquainted with this old woman, and then Claire speaks with Jonas privately, saying that she is Gabe's son, mother, not son, mother. And so he's having a hard time believing it, but she gives him some proof. And so Jonas is like, yeah, that makes sense. So then he tells Gabe, and then Gabe is also like, that doesn't make any sense. And then after a while, Gabe is like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, stuff. And then Claire basically says that the Trademaster has taken away her youth in exchange for finding Gabriel. And she's also like in the process of dying. Like, I don't know how old the Trademaster made her, because she was like 14 when she gave birth, and then I don't know, she's probably like 80, 90 or something like that. But anyway, so she's like actively dying and is very close to death. So then Gabe, now that he realizes that this old woman is his true mother, he decides to go face the Trademaster to restore his mother's youth. And so what he does is that he finds the Trademaster somewhere. They have a bit of a fight. And then the Trademaster's like, let's do a little trade, huh? You want that boat? I can get you that boat, but you're going to have to give me something. And then Gabe is like, no, I'm not going to give you anything. So anyway, yeah. He then veers into the Trademaster's like mind or whatever, and realizes that the Trademaster is not even a human, just an evil entity who feeds on people's suffering and stuff, similar to like Pennywise or something, if you know what I mean. So anyway, the reason why the Trademaster's been powerful for so long is because all the people that he affected back in Messenger have been suffering. But Gabe has seen that people no longer like the Trademaster, and whatever suffering they had done before, they've come to accept it, and they've gotten their lives back, and they're happier now. And so explains all this to the Trademaster. He's like, everyone is so happy now. You're useless. You're just gonna starve. Because, as I said, he feeds on people's suffering. And so basically all this just like overloads the Trademaster, and the Trademaster, dies and goes away. And so now the Trademaster's defeated, and so Jonas wakes up the next morning, doesn't see Claire there, so he's like, did she die or was she taken away or whatever? But so he goes to the door and sees a very young woman standing in the doorway with Gabriel, her son, approaching in the distance. And that is how Sun ends. So overall, what did I think about Sun? Well, like I said previously, I thought it was a pretty good finale to the entire Giver series. I mean, it made a lot of things make sense. It ties back into the first book. It mentions some stuff from the second book, like Kira and her father. And then, of course, it's like 7 years after the events of Messenger, so that's kind of there too. So anyway, I think Sun, while it's not quite the direction I would have gone with finishing the Giver series, I certainly think it brings some amount of closure to the Giver series. Whether or not you do is up to you, of course, but I think it provides a pretty good set of closure for the Giver series. But what I would have done with it is that I was expecting, because of course the first Giver book ends with Jonas leaving the community and going into another one. So I thought the rest of the series going forward would have been like something like that. He leads like a resistance movement to shut down the evil community and restore peace and love in the universe and whatever. But that is not the way that Lois Lowry went, and while that's not the way I went, I'm not Lois Lowry, so I, of course, couldn't make that decision. So I will say that was kind of what brings this book down for me, and I guess this entire series as a whole, because I totally thought this series was going to go this way, and it ended up going this way instead. So that's basically my only real problem with Sun, and by extension the series. And I guess another problem I have with the entire series, because this is kind of an entire series retrospective at this point, is that Gathering Blue, outside of introducing Kira, her father, and Maddie, Gathering Blue really has nothing to do with the rest of them. It's like Jonas is mentioned once, not even by name, and like the characters leak over into the other ones, but Gathering Blue is just really like not connected from any of the other ones. So I will say that. But anyway, yeah, overall, Sun, and by extension the rest of the Giver series, were really fun reads, and also they were really short, at least the first 3 were. 4 will take you a little longer, because, of course, it's about 3 or 4 times the size of the first 3. But, yeah, overall, the series has just been really fun. As I said before in the Giver video, I read The Giver once back in 7th grade, and so I kind of forgot a lot of the stuff that happened in it. But I loved coming back to it now out of high school. And yeah, so the Giver series in its entirety is just pretty cool, and I don't think enough people talk about it. And I also know that they made a movie based on The Giver, which I've heard is not good. But outside of the movie, the books are just really good and really solid. So I think you should read them if you just want some really interesting views on society and censorship and emotions and identity and all that. So overall, Sun is great. The Giver series as a whole is great. And go read all four of them. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this review of Sun, and I hope you enjoyed my retrospective of the Giver series in its entirety, because as I said, the series is just really good and really makes you think about a lot of stuff that could be going on in real life. I don't want to get like political up in here, but you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, the entire series and Sun just exceeded my expectations with how good they were, and they're really quick reads, so just really, like, you can just really blow through them in like a week or so. But yeah, anyway, that is the end of the video. I've been Mr. BG, and this has been BG's Books. But in the meantime, I gotta go take care of some business. So yeah, goodbye, guys.
Hello.
Oh, hi, Kira from Gathering Blue, who's almost not mentioned in the entirety of the rest of the series. Okay, I arrived at my destination. Hey, editor.
Hey, what's up? Oh, Maddie died.
Oh, Maddie, I didn't even know him, but he died for some reason. Also, why are you old now?
The trade master did this to me.
Ah, the trade master. I was afraid of this. Alright, I'm gonna go get your youth back. Just hold on.
#1 Victory Royale.
Hey, this is the Giver from the first book, The Giver. You forgot about Mitt.